Hello everybody, welcome to another Hands-On with me, Christian Schiller. What is Hands-On? Hands-On is a roughly weekly, although there wasn't one, was there one last week? I can't remember. I've been traveling and doing all sorts of things, so my whole schedule and calendar is a bit out of whack at the moment. And also my Safari web extensions one is taking a little bit longer to put together because I wanted to get it technically correct. So roughly every week I get these hands on this keyboard to try something generally aimed at developers, see how far I get. If you enjoy what you see, you can find more at christianschiller.com, and you can find an archive of all my videos as well as on the various channels you may be watching on. So what am I looking at today? Dato CMS, another headless CMS. I actually love the concept of headless CMSs. CMS is actually the singular and the plural. It's always very confusing because I love the concept. I've always been into Jamstack, static site generators, things like that. I spent a long time developing content management systems. I could not think of the word then, CMSs. And I got kind of put off them by the weight they added, and I really got into this kind of markdown static site. But then that hits its limits as well. So I really love the concept of headless CMSs, and I've done a couple on the show. You can, I think, find Contentful and Strappy and maybe another one. And I always get a little bit let down at a certain point when you have to integrate the headless part, the content, into a render. And it always ends up being way more complex than I expect it to be. And I always end up getting a little bit disappointed. So let's see if Dato, I don't know, if it any better, if it satisfies my needs. We shall see. Right, let's jump into screen share. So datocms.com. Let's just zoom in a little bit. There we go. I really find this kind of interesting because they claim Vercel as a client, and I actually kind of thought Vercel run their own sort of equivalent. A whole bunch of other companies here. Some I'm not 100% sure if it's, I don't know. I find some of them, I thought some of them would have had their own option, but okay. Headless CMS for the modern web. More than 25,000 businesses use Dato CMS to create online content at scale from a central hub and distribute it via API. So nothing particularly new here, the kind of concepts you would expect. It doesn't look like it is open source. There's a lot of blah, blah here. Yes. Fine. This is all what I kind of expect. I don't know how long they've been around for. HashiCorp, it's a good one. And we could see some of the features here. Looks like there's GraphQL, CDN. This is all we kind of expect. And then front-end technologies here. I don't think they are open source. They are completely closed source as far as I can tell. We'll come to that later. I guess we just have to click on try it now for free and see what happens. So far, I'm not 100% sure what I'm supposed to do. From my previous backgrounds in headless CMS, this is CMS I kind of know the rough idea. You create the data model, you create your content, and then you expose it somehow. So that's the kind of plan I'm going to follow, but I'm going to assume that I don't know what I'm doing and I haven't used a headless CMS before, and see if things are made clearer somewhere else. So getting started, that is. And all of this looks very, very familiar to me. Content delivery API, content management API. These are all very familiar concepts if you've looked at any other headless CMSs. In fact, all too familiar in some respects, but getting started. Cloud-based headless CMS, yes, kind of what we expect. API first, okay. Retrieving content with the content delivery API, programmatically create or update content items. I mean, I know from my experiences with Contentful, I actually used to work for them for a little bit, these are exactly the same terms they use. I say I don't know who came first. We'll see. Great. The content schema. Models. Yep. I think this is something we would expect. It's the data model, the types of content. An event has a title and a date and a location, for example. A blog post has a date, some tags, an author, that kind of thing. Fields in each model, that makes sense. And then records that are based around that model and field to represent the content. That all makes sense so far. Organizing content. A new model is created, new menu item, adding in the content sidebar. Okay, that makes sense. All kind of auto-completes automatically. That's fine and good. And we can organize things in our own way. Great. So far, everything's very clear. We have roles and permissions. I assume setting up who can create what and edit what, etc., etc. And you can see some things here. I get the feeling that may or may not be available on all plans, but we'll think about that later. Project-wide permissions and environments. Now, this is something that is becoming increasingly common in headless CMSs, of having like a staging environment, a testing environment, a development environment, a production environment, and being able to control access and permissions, I guess, on all of those too. This all makes sense so far. Content level permissions, yep. Translators, interesting. That's a nice one. I don't think I've seen that before. Workflow permissions, okay. Forking the environment, asset permissions, that's cool. Putting it together with an example. This all makes good sense so far and actually seems quite clear. It's one of the clearest explained static site headless CMSs I've seen. Collaboration features, which will be hard for me to test, of course, but I don't know if this is real time. Now I've spotted a typo. I don't think I can suggest changes. It seems to just be telling me that someone is doing something, not actually like kind of smart collaboration. That would be nice. This is something that's fairly typical in standard traditional content management systems. And I think the rest here is good. I like the look of video encoding and streaming and things like that. I think I might just jump in. So I'm going to try and recreate my personal website. Let's do that. christianschiller.com, if I hadn't mentioned it already. So I guess we create a new project, blank project, demo project. I think I'll start from blank. And I suppose now I jump into the project. All making sense so far. A whole bunch of changes up here. I'll worry about that later. Models. I have zoomed in and this is, oh no I haven't. It's a different window. There we go. Settings, models, blocks, workflows, content permissions, plugins. Whole bunch here. Let's just jump into creating a model. Create a model. The onboarding is pretty good so far. Yeah, let's go for a blog. Do you need to manage a collection of records of this kind or just a single one? I'm not really sure what that means, so let's find out. Okay. That makes sense. So this is a collection. Yep. Well, that was kind of obvious, but I just wanted to check what that meant. So it's not a single instance. Settings, yes. No, we don't need locales. Workflow, we don't have a workflow yet. Record collections visualization mode, tabular or compact. Not quite sure what that means. Let's leave default for now. We'll probably change that in a minute, actually. Presentation title. Okay, I think we'll just leave it as it is for now. Add some fields. And this actually also looks very familiar. Let's create a title. Title is the title, yeah. Title. I don't want to have localization. Validations, it's required. I think everything else is okay. And I don't think this can be smart, but yeah. And text input settings show as a heading. I guess. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but I think I know what it means. Save the field, and we'll add body. We have text and structured text. Text formatting with links and media. I wonder what that means. That would be interesting just to see what that means. Interestingly, it talks about the model here, but not really fields. Just go into the main documentation. No, I think... Yes, this is structured text fields. A field type that enables authors to create rich text content. So I think this is what you want for the body. Beautiful Notion-like editor. I don't like Notion editor, but anyway, I just want Markdown. Provides an HTML and Markdown editor because there are situations where they're unavoidable when a project. So should I use it or shouldn't I use it is what I'm trying to understand. I think to be honest with you, just want a lame old text field. Yes, I want Markdown, sorry. Okay, body, no localization for now. Required, yep. Default value, no. That's fine. And let's add an image or something like that. A field set could be interesting. Let's do that just so we see what it is. I think I understand what it means. We'll go for external link. Collapsible. Sure. Guess it's just a text. Yes, there we go. So, okay. Link validation will match it to a URL. Default value, that's fine. Fine. And I guess we can move that into there. Nice. And we'll just make text as well for the publisher. I have something in my mind kind of here that is sort of what I'm aiming for here. There we go. And we'll add an image. Media. There's modular content as well for landing pages is interesting. Media, a single asset. Embed existing. You can upload it as well. I guess there's going to be limits on that. Localization, no. Required, no. No, yes. Alternate text, yes. Presentation, no. That'll do. Okay, let's move that up. I'm interested because this says edit model, though I kind of thought we're already editing the model. So, oh, I see, the top level. So I guess that is now done. Create a new record. Sure. Classic. And let's just try a bit of Markdown just to check it works. And can we add code? Okay, it's a little messy. I'm not sure if that is really working as expected. We'll add an image. Why not? And we'll say YouTube. Although I know there should be an S there. Save. Couldn't create the record. Why? I must set the alt text. Where? There. And it's not published yet. Great. This all makes sense so far. So now let's publish it. So suppose this is scheduled. Yep. And unpublishing. That's always interesting. Let's publish. We can see some details here. Let's now then look at the API side. This side of things is always the good part. When we come to the API side is where it gets sometimes challenging. What should we do? I will probably go down the Jekyll path just because personally I find it easier, although I am very aware that it's not the most popular option these days, so it may be lagging behind, but let's see. A Ruby-based CLI tool that makes it extremely convenient. Let's hope that's true. Jekyll posting collections, data files. Now that could be cool. Okay. All right. Okay, so we add the gem to the gem file. It's reasonable. There we go. Very nice. And bundle install. Gem exposes a CLI tool. Very good. Okay, good start. We have an error. Could be that my Ruby version is kind of old. 2.75. So I'm not massively behind. I would have expected that to work, really. I don't know. Let's just install it just in case. Unfortunately, as they're not open source, there's not really going to be a way to solve this unless they do have a GitHub organization and documentation, forum, contact support, forum, I suppose. Have a look here. That looks a little different from my error, I think. It was one of those errors that... Actually, it's active support. No, it's a whole bunch of... Boy, oh boy, what fun. I wonder if we need it. Maybe we can circle around the need for using the command line tool. Let's see, maybe we don't need it. Let's just carry on with this in the meantime. We'll see if we actually need it. Dumps Dato CMS content into local files. Kind of feels like I do need it then. Yeah. Kind of feels like we are going to need it. Let's see. So it's kind of great that it has this tool, but yes, if you can't get it to work, it's a slight pain. I mean, it was just a very basic post, but you get the idea. I mean, the interesting thing is I actually kind of want to go the other way. I want to export everything from Jekyll. It might be interesting to have a look at how we can do something like that. In the meantime, import and export content. There we go. REST API, your old CMS, text file with comma. No, it's a bunch of markdown files. But I mean, I think I could probably run something to convert them all to JSON relatively easily. Oof, this does not look. Okay, I think that's going to be out of scope, as they say. Hopefully this won't take too long. I had this ongoing issue of, for some reason, every time I wanted to do npm installs, it would take a really long time. That seems to be better now. Okay. All right. Oh, same error, I think. I now initialize constant active support. So some kind of problem there. All right, fine. You don't want me to use Jekyll. Okay. Let's then try a different one. I mean, I've got to present this content somehow, or there's no real point in going through this process. So what should we try instead? What's going to be the next simplest? Let's go for Hugo. It seems to be that this, I don't think this would be ideal, but let's just go for it. Dato, about 5th time lucky. Okay. Good. So we need to add JavaScript, which is a bit weird, but okay. Sure. That. Obviously going to have no theme or anything like that. I mean, the rendering side is still the thing for me. It's going to have no real concept of how to render the content. That looks like it works. There's a bit more there than it alludes to here. So we want to get our read-only API token. Did that work? Missing config file. Okay. Nothing said anything about a config file. Interesting. Unfortunately, I seem to have hit the sort of issue I always hit with every headless CMS, that the editing experience is great, and then I try to actually just do something with that content. Here we go. Why does it not mention that above? The dump command will read a file or the file passed. The file should export a function. So that's not massively helpful. This isn't really particularly convenient if I have to write a file that tells that, yeah, this isn't massively convenient. All right, third time lucky. I give up. I will go down the JavaScript path. This is obviously what they want me to do. Oh God, I've got to get into GraphQL. Yeah, I think I'm already hitting where I start to get frustrated with these sorts of things. Is you get to a certain point, yes, just query the API, and then and then I'm kind of think, is this actually any easier? I start to feel like the headless CMS become really aimed at teams with a lot of time to do all this. I don't know. I sometimes feel like the just vanilla static site generation is kind of easier. And it's also interesting because obviously it has a knowledge of my model. It knows what I'm integrating it with. Why can it not give me the boilerplate code? That's more work on the company's part, but that's sort of what I would kind of expect when you promise this simplicity. So I think we know what's going to happen here. It's GraphQL, and then you render it into a template. It's sort of what you'd expect. Which, yeah, it's not really what I was hoping for, I suppose. I kind of wanted something more seamless, because this means as well that if someone adds a field, you have to go through the process again. It's not quite as seamless, really. I mean, maybe I'm having unrealistic expectations here. In summary then, the editing experience, really nice. This is what always happens with these sorts of tools. The various kind of content creation side is really, really good. Project starters, all sorts of things here. Import and export, okay, that's a bit fiddly. The API is nice. The content modeling, really nice. Let's have a look at the plans for pricing. And we have, 3 projects, up to 1 per project model, 60%. This is a pretty generous developer plan. Actually very generous. I could quite easily do a lot of my site from here. This one might be tricky, video streaming. Hard to say exactly what that means. And a whole bunch of other interesting things here. The translation I found interesting. Image transformations is also, if they got that right, is interesting. This could be good, hard to say. And a lot of other really interesting things. But as always, with these, you hit the wall when you get to the actually rendering the content, and it ends up being more work than you expect. And that's not to say that Dato is worse or better than any of the others. This is the same wall I hit with all of them, in that they sort of promise that it's going to be very easy. And in essence, it is, but it's not as easy as they kind of make it look like, I think. It ends up taking longer than sort of want it to, especially when they kind of have access to my model and all these sorts of things. They could do a lot more for me, I guess. Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of different things here for other static site generators and things like that. There's interesting. Creating a plugin. Yeah, there's a bunch here. I wonder how active the project is, or the company is. Let's see. This is all relatively recent, so they are building things and doing things, plugins, etc., etc. This is very much all part of the kind of Jamstack world, I suppose. You can see if they have how big of a team. I don't know if that's all the people. If that's all the people, then that's actually quite an accomplishment, I suppose. It's just 6 people, so it makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, it's an interesting project. I would love the delivery experience to be a little easier and more seamless maybe, but that's a complaint I have with all of these headless CMSs, and why I always end up just going back to static sites instead and just using like YAML or JSON files like you can in a lot of them. But I really do like the experience here. It's actually quite nice. And the options you have available to you. And we didn't look at a whole bunch of other things that are possible here. It's quite a lot possible. So if we change this, can we... It doesn't look like you can change a field once it's been created, which is expected, I suppose. Let's delete it. Yes, that's fine. So structured text is modular content would be something I was interested in. This is something that was always promised a lot in traditional CMSs and was never completely realized. This ability to have structure, but I'll give people freedom, I guess, which is an interesting one. So it looks like that didn't delete that post, but there's just, I guess there's going to be nothing there anymore. I don't know how. Oh, there we go. That's how it works. Open focus mode. And we have slash command. Ah, there we go. Convert to. It's not entirely. Actually, it says it's like Notion. I've not really used Notion. I don't really like Notion. So code block, paragraph. It's not. Oh, hello. What happened there? All right. Ugh. Okay. I think that's probably time to call it a day. So let's summarize. Dato CMS, great editing experience, apart from a few bugs here and there. Really nice editing experience. Content delivery experience, not terrible, just what the sort of experience I've always had with headless CMSs, in that I really want it to be more seamless, and I always run into problems. I ran into problems with both of the Ruby ones, and then when you get into the whole React JavaScript world, I don't know. I feel like it's going to take me some time to set up just rendering one post, which to me feels like too much. And I feel like the model could kind of be created for me somehow, maybe, if it's basic. I don't know, maybe that's asking too much, but that's my feeling. It's kind of what I want it to be, I suppose, especially if you're paying for it, which I'm not, but you know what I mean. So in principle, I really like it, but I still am not convinced by the headless CMS idea. I think I'd still rather use something like Static Site Generator and Netlify CMS or something like that if you're going to go down that path, kind of Jamstack content editing path. But interesting to try it, nice to see it. I love some of the approaches to the content editing, and yeah, I didn't really get to a conclusion, which is always a shame, but hopefully you saw some things there that might be interesting to you. So if you enjoyed this video, you can find more at kristianschiller.com, and you can find a lot of my other videos there or wherever you are watching this. Until then, thank you very much for joining me, everybody. See you next time. Take care, everyone.